Just 2 lots though.
Yes.
So the information we got from the electric company was not true. Because the electric company had told us the offer was off their table. That's the word we got.
I don't know how to answer that, but
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the last I heard from East Central Energy, is that they were told that Great River Energy had pulled the offer off the table.
looks like maybe the situation has changed.
Well, if they're doing everything with according to the zoning laws, there's not much you can do about it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So are you suntan, Terry?
Sorry, what?
Are you suntanned?
Yes.
You.
It's a beautiful.
How long have you been there?
We came in Thursday and we are leaving as soon as I get off the phone. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a good day to leave. It's cloudy.
Yeah. Well, by the time you get here, it'll probably be raining.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's not snow. We're good. So what's the temperature there?
Gosh, got to be 60 by now. I don't even know. It was like 80. It was like 80 yesterday.
Oh, nice. So I love spring.
It was t-shirt weather all day long.
Oh.
I don't really hardly ever remember that this early in April it being so nice. I'm sure it has been, but
I know.
I do remember because I get pictures every once in a while, not very long ago, 8, 9, 12 inches of snow and 10th of April or something.
Yeah. I'm assuming the taps came out of the trees then?
Yeah, we pulled our taps Saturday. They were pretty well done, most of them. I imagine we collected 900 gallons maybe.
Wow.
And a little more.
Is it 10 to 1 that it boils down to?
40 to 1.
40 to 1
is the rough measure.
That's crazy.
The rough measure.
Did you guys collect them?
We did not.
What?
You did not do it? Okay. I remember buying some from.
I took a whole bunch up to Josh to have him. Josh Moore, they got a little better outfit than I got.
That was pretty.
They got an RO machine, so they take 60% or 70, even more than that sometimes, of water out of the, so they get concentrate to boil.
Okay.
So they've already, instead of 40 to 1, they're probably down at 10 to 1 or 15 to 1.
Right.
Before they start boiling.
That makes a big difference in the amount of time, the amount of wood necessary.
Oh man, we throw wood in that thing like crazy.
You really are gonna have to take a field trip to Kim's dad's place. I've never
Yeah,
seen any.
I always am going to, and then it's like we're busy at that time of year too, so. hard to get to.
Commissioner Allen, I'll mute you again for the pledge. So you'll have to unmute yourself after that.
Okay.
Right?
Ryan,
Yeah.
that audio is a little garbled, just so you know.
What was that?
It's cheaper to haul it.
The audio is a little garbled.
Good boy, I'm not worried about the state.
We've got some conversations going on in the boardroom. So I'm
Okay,
sure that's.
Maybe we need to have a turn in poachers. Reward. Not a fine, but a reward.
I don't know, it's something to think about, isn't it? Yeah.
Everybody's got cell phones now.
Terry, where do you fly out of?
I brought Deb to Duluth yesterday.
Hi, Josh.
Hey, guys.
Morning.
Thank you for these. Can't imagine using this down again. Hildred, they got me swimming. That's probably the way you are in your office, and then taking care of 5 commissioners.
I get a lot of help.
Good morning.
Hi there.
Morning.
Hi, JJ.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, JJ.
Hey, Steve. Hey, Matt.
Hey,
Hi,
GJ.
Terry. Hey, Josh.
Hey, I see you got a Minnesota sign behind you. You're back. You brought the warm weather back with you.
Just about. I shipped some warm weather to you.
There you go. Perfect.
Good
I
for
heard
you.
you
Thank
I
you.
heard you got it. Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, I've got 10 o'clock. We will begin. This is the April 6th county board meeting. The meeting will be in person via WebEx, phone conference, and streamed live on the internet. Not more than 2 county commissioners will be present in the meeting room. Public may join the meeting via WebEx in person or watch the live stream. If joining the meeting in person, the total number of persons, including commissioners, cannot exceed 10, and social distancing of at least 6 feet will be in effect. The governor of the state of Minnesota is issued Executive Order 20-01 declaring a peacetime emergency and coordinating Minnesota's strategy to protect Minnesotans from COVID-19. On March 24th, 2020, the Pine County Board of Commissioners declared a local emergency for Pine County. Based on these conditions, the chair of the Pine County Board of Commissioners has determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statute 13D-021 Subdivision 1 have been met and is not practical or prudent for all members of the county board to meet in person. Public is invited to join the meeting in person, remotely by phone, or and then there's the information is online. We will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
one media person in the room and two county employees.
Thank you.
Yep.
Public forum. Does anybody wish to speak at public forum? Anybody, we got any hands up on electronically? I hear none, see none. We'll move on to the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
two minor items. On the consent agenda, item number 2, the MOU with the district courts. If the MOU could be amended to make the district court administrator Paul Patterson as the project manager instead of Luann. And then on the commissioner updates, if we could include an HRA update for Commissioner Ludwig to make.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question also. On the consent, with the consent agenda from the zoning and planning and solid waste, there is for Jessica to be promoted to the new position. It says that it's regular agenda, but it's in the consent agenda. Should it be with the regular agenda, or is the consent agenda the correct spot?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner
Yes.
Lovgren, we would ordinarily put those on the consent agenda if it's an authorized position and we've identified a candidate for filling. So if you're okay with that?
Yep. I was just wondering, it was checked regular, so I just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, we will look for a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved. Oh, Ludwig will second.
We got Lovgren motion, Ludwig second. Is there any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Yeah.
District 3, Commissioner Lovgren.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the March 16th County Board meeting and summary for publication.
Moore will move that.
Lovgren will second.
A motion by Moore, seconded by Lovgren. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll then move on to the minutes of boards, reports, and correspondence. We got the Pine County Housing Redevelopment Authority, HRA, from February 24th, 2021. We got the Pine County Chemical Health Coalition minutes from March 8th, 21. The Pine County Land and Survey Report for March, and the Department of Human Services Internal Audit Office correspondence from March 5th, 2021.
Ludwig will move.
Moral second.
Got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Moore to approve those reports and minutes. Is there any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lupkin.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham. District Commissioner Waldham, I guess I didn't hear you. I think you're muted. Oh, we've lost him. District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. You've had that in front of you for several days.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ludwig will second.
Is there any discussion, questions? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
3, Commissioner Lupkin.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Using any Wi-Fi by chance, are you? Because I just lost my meeting.
Here you are.
Plug the
Commissioner
TV,
Waldham?
plug the camera.
I guess I'm not hearing him.
He doesn't have the Wi-Fi, does he, by chance? No.
I-
I wonder what the hell's going on.
Commissioner Waldham, we're now hearing your audio. Are you there?
I'll just continue on. District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Matt,
Commissioner
Matt?
Ludwig.
you want to vote?
Did you say 4 or 5?
She's calling for you, Matt.
Oh, aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes. Okay. JJ, are you there? I'm not seeing you and I'm not hearing you. So hopefully you can get reconnected. Ryan, are you hearing or seeing him?
We are not. He's lost
Okay.
both audio and he's muted, so.
Okay. We'll move on to the regular agenda, which is ordinance 2020-63, slow, no wake boating. Who's going to present that?
Caleb Anderson is on his way to the podium.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
morning.
members of the board. The no wake boating ordinance 2020-63. So this started kind of, in recent years, there's been a lot of concern on several of the lakes in Pine County about high water and wakes during high water events and the damage that's caused to shorelines, property damage, erosion, things like this. And the sheriff often gets called out to consider declaring no wakes, and he has the authority to do that kind of at his discretion. But it's become more and more common to have those types of events and for people to kind of to him. So we've worked through a process by which it would not just be up to his judgment, but an ordinance that would kind of standardize when that ordinance, when the no wakes would be in effect. So we worked with Cross Lake Association, Mokegama Lake Association, the DNR area hydrologist, and the sheriff as well, to kind of come up with an ordinance that hopefully makes sense. And understanding it's addressing the Snake River between the Cross and Pokegama Lakes as well. We arrived at a standard where we've got really good elevation data and active monitoring of lake levels on Pokegama Lake. And then on the Cross Lake side, there's that Snake River USGS gauge, which is available in real time online. And for the purpose of public messaging, we've set elevations for both water bodies. And once that elevation gets triggered, which they should be pretty much in sync, but all three water bodies would be under no wake, just so for simplicity of messaging and less public confusion. So that's how the ordinance was written. In looking at the data, we expect it to be anywhere from 0. In looking at the last few years of data, we expect the elevations, the water levels to be triggered anywhere from 0 times per summer to maybe 3 or 4. So that's kind of what we can expect. We've had conversations about how to, get the message out there. And there's complications with just having kind of some meter stick out on the lake, and where it's really obvious when the water hits that point on the meter stick, no waves. And so instead, just because of any signage that you put in the water has some possible damage due to ice movement and all that. So we're proposing as kind of an outreach plan for this to post signs at the public water or the public boat launches that say there is a no wake ordinance, monitor the Pine County website and social media for notification when that exists. And here's a phone number if you have questions. And so we can work with the lake associations who all have active Facebook and email lists to their memberships to get the residents well informed, as well as the county sheriff's Facebook page is well attended, the Pine City community page and all that. So that's kind of the best option that we can come up with at this time. So for our newer commissioners, there was a public hearing held back in October on this proposal, and we have to have DNR approval in order to adopt the ordinance. We did get that approval. One of the things we had to submit to them was a record of public hearing, kind of showing public acceptability of the ordinance, and that the public responded favorably at the time of public hearing. It was pretty. There was a consensus that a no wake ordinance made sense. Some folks thought that it actually should have been more restrictive, if anything. So that's what we know. So I guess the next step would be for you to consider adopting the ordinance, and then once in effect, the sheriff and I would work together on getting signs posted and notifying the lake associations in public kind of what to be prepared for in the event of high water. Do you have questions for me?
Caleb, I have a couple. One is the people that live on the lake and the river and maybe in the area probably will stay pretty well informed, but what about the person that drives up from wherever and uses the lake once a year or twice a year? Will there be sufficient signage at the public landings?
We plan to post a sign at the landing, but it'll be kind of a generic one that would always be up, that would kind of point people to the county webpage. So it's not perfect. No ordinance is ever perfect. And I think the sheriff understands this to be somewhat also a big part of any ordinance is public education. So we certainly want to get the word out. And then another option is we do have watercraft inspectors that are funded through the AIS program, where at the boat launches, engaging those boaters. That'd be another avenue for talking to visitors.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Caleb, don't we have some no wake buoys that we used in the past that we put in the river?
I defer to Jeff on that. I wonder if they're still there, or if they went downstream.
Oh,
I think, Jeff, do you have any comments on that? I think, is that Jeff Nelson on?
wait, we used to have them in we have water patrol or sheriff's patrol people, right?
And I believe,
And we get a grant for that, I think, every year too.
yeah,
So they used to put all the buoys.
sure.
You know,
Right, but the problem that we were hearing, remember during the public hearing, was that without an ordinance, it's really difficult to do much enforcement. And so what this ordinance does is allow them to cite an ordinance that, you know, this is the second time now we've stopped you this weekend, and we gave you a warning the first time, now you're gonna get a ticket because you have violated the ordinance.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
Caleb, did we do this up north too, or is this the first? Is it Island Lake or Sturgeon Lake that was looking for that, their lake associations as well, or not? I can't remember.
We've been in conversation with them about it, and I think the sheriff has declared no wakes, and he kind of just held that restriction in place because that water level has been so obviously high for so long up on Sturgeon. So yeah, we don't have, the ordinance has not been adopted to cover any other lakes though.
And like you said, we've done this in years past. It's just, this gives it a little more flexibility, or so it doesn't have to come through the county board every time, right?
Well, I think it standardizes the procedure at which we restrict wakes. So it kind of, rather than the sheriff being put on the spot where his phone's lighting up and he has to go kind of just make a judgment call. Now we've worked through the actual data and we kind of have an idea of what is kind of a publicly accepted elevation at which we're concerned. And it kind of, it puts a little more process and not just one person's judgment behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair?
yeah, go ahead.
I was just
David?
gonna say Sheriff
Yeah.
Nelson is trying to talk. He's gonna drop off and then rejoin and see if he can get his
Okay.
audio.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
yes. Go
Yes, I
ahead.
apologize. Looks like I lost connection. I lost connection for a while somehow. Looks like I'm back and everything's good now. I had a question for about the with this wake. Is that the wake's causing what type of problems? I'm sorry, because I lost connection. Is that erosion pretty much, or what?
Erosion,
Nuisance?
property damage and erosion along the shorelines.
Okay. All right.
And there's
Thank
been
you.
a lot of conversation about how much do you attribute to the wakes, how much do you attribute to the wind? You know, that's something that folks have batted around, but from what I'm hearing, there is a consensus that that the boats pose a significant problem for shorelines and properties.
Oh, okay. So I understand erosion is one of the key factors here with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Do you want to see if the sheriff has audio now?
You there, Jeff? Anyway, for the new commissioners, we've always had the opportunity to declare a no wake period, generally after spring runoff and heavy rainfall, and that river system gets way full. And it's always been up to the sheriff to declare, okay, the river's running too fast, now we got to have a no wake zone. So what they have come up with is a solution that says when the lake reaches this level and the river system reaches this level, it will trigger us to enact a no wake zone. When it falls below that level again, then the no wake zone will come off.
Thank you. That's correct.
Jeff, did you join us? I guess not. So we're looking for a motion to adopt this ordinance. We've had-
Morrow, move ordinance 2020-63.
Lefferts will second that.
And a motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegren. Is there any more questions, any more discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Hilaire, Deb?
I'm here. Can you hear me, Steve?
Steve, you're muted.
Can you hear me, Steve?
I heard him
We
say
can't.
yes.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, you're showing muted on my end also.
Yeah, unmute, Steve. There you go. You're unmuted.
Okay. I sometimes you're not allowed to unmute yourself for some reason. Anyway, did you ask me my vote?
I did.
Okay, yes.
And District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Here we go. Technology Committee report. We had a meeting. Josh and I were there. Josh, you got notes on it or you want me to do it?
It don't matter. I think
Go ahead.
the biggest thing we talked about a lot of stuff. We hadn't had a meeting in a couple months. I think it was November or something, last one. So the 911 public safety answering point equipment and service was a big thing. Denise presented that the purchase and maintenance agreement for the new hardware related to the 911 phone system. E911 funds will be used for the project. Cost about $86,960.82 for hardware and service, with a yearly maintenance of $23,539.65. So the big thing was that's all covered under the grant, or I think it'll all be either covered or recovered. We might have to put a little out, but it'll all be granted back. So, and then Ryan gave some project updates on projects that had been completed in 2020, antivirus deployment in the state courts phone system, firewall upgrade, courtroom technology, camera systems for remote meetings. He also talked about some current projects, including the tax and CAMA stuff, and soft phones for teleworkers, multi-factor authentication, transfer from the AS400 to a Windows-based system. So, and then Rod Williamson from the jail gave an update on the new cameras systems, and it was almost done. They did add a few cameras just because of the COVID-19 that we didn't think we needed, but they figured it would help out. And then what else did we discuss? I think that's about it, ain't it?
We did have a discussion, Josh, about how the technology has been deployed and is holding up with all our remote workers. And I think our IT staff needs a big high five for the work they've done to, first of all, we were in a good position to start with. And, you know, we did try some things that maybe didn't work exactly the way we had hoped, but they were able to shift gears. And I think the people that are working from home have really good IT support, and they have the equipment they need to function at a full level. So we feel good about that.
The other thing we did discuss too about the technology committee, being the technology committee, we're gonna, even after the emergency orders are over and we can go back to in meeting, we're gonna try to stay remote. Just as, you know, if we have to get together, we'll get together, but we all had the consensus of we should kind of lead the pack as far as remote meetings, and it's been working out pretty good. And Ryan does a great job, him and his staff as well. So we'll see how that goes. With all the technology problems today, or I think it's more of a internet problem, but we're working on that as well. So we'll see.
Thanks. Any questions of the technology committee?
I think we have to make a motion to approve that contract.
Yes, please.
Yes,
Okay.
thanks, Josh.
I will move that.
I will second it.
Okay, we got a motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegren to approve that contract for the 911 stuff. Is there any discussion, questions? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. That moves us on to special committee report on the second amendment committee. Matt, you going to take that?
Sure, I can start it off. We had our meeting last week and had a pretty, I would say, robust discussion, went around the table. And we came up with this resolution. And then I'm going to submit to the record to Pine County. We have roughly around 500 signatures from petitions around. I didn't count them, but there's quite a stack of people that were supporting us passing this resolution. And I think you've all had a chance to read it, and I think we all stand, you know, with our oath. And I have not heard, everything I've heard has been positive about the discussion of us taking this action. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Mr. Chair, but.
No, we did have a discussion about, you know, what does this really prove? And, you know, I think we came to the conclusion that we pass a lot of resolutions in support of things. And this would be more like that. We pass a resolution to support the County Engineer Association or the Probation Association or something. And so we're reaffirming our oath, really. And I think this board is a pretty strong board in defense of the Second Amendment. But some people have expressed that they wanted stronger language in our discussions with the county attorney and research that we've done with AMC and such. I think to go much beyond this, we don't need to have ourselves locked in a lawsuit. And I think this is makes it very clear where we stand, and so I support it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I would just like to add, I think when you read this, and it's like back when we were doing our writing in college or whatever, sometimes less is more. And this states everything that needs to be stated and that we back it, so.
I think that,
With that, I will make a motion to adopt this or pass this resolution.
we have another comment from, was that Terry?
That was me. I have some discussion on this. Do you want me to wait until there's a second?
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay.
Moral second.
Okay. Okay, now Terry.
So I've done some research on this because I believe that we need to go further. I think we need to do the Second Amendment county resolution. So looking at like Yahoo News and New York Times, there's so many things going on in the federal government right now where they want to do some law changing, and they're talking about doing it as a presidential executive decision because they can't get, it's a divided Congress with this. And so they're going to be passing an executive order to enact reform, which takes away those rights. So I understand where you're coming from with the fact that the Second Amendment is, we did say that we would support the Constitution. However, we've got people in power that want to change what those things stood for in the past. So then I pulled up the resolution just to what they're suggesting that you use for a Second Amendment county, sanctuary county for the state of Minnesota. And it adds that certain legislation that may be introduced by the legislature or from the Congress will affect the infringing of the rights of the abiding citizens to bear arms. And then it says that we express in deep commitment to the rights of the citizens of Pine County to keep and bear arms, which is really what we're saying. And then it also says we wish to express opposition to any law that would unconstitutionally restrict the rights of the citizens of Pine County to bear arms. Everybody that I've heard from, and I've heard from quite a few, they don't want us to just say that we're going to support the Constitution. They want us to step further and become a Second Amendment county. So I believe that we need to go further.
Did somebody have something to say?
Yes, this is Eileen Krupp. And our township just passed a Second Amendment resolution. We're supporting the county in their effort to do that. But we would like to see the language also say that the county is going to support us with our resources to make sure that if somebody comes in and decides to take our guns, that our county is going to be there and say no. Thank you.
Are there any more comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
a lot of this has been so choppy, the audio. I just had a tough time. I mean,
Yeah,
I got bits and pieces, really struggling with the connection. That's all I wanted to say.
I'm with you, JJ. I was wondering, based on only hearing every other word Terry said.
Oh no,
I
liked every other word that I heard. I mean, I think she has some very good points, and also the other lady, yes, but it's so hard to try to piece that together when the connection is so poor. I just.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, as a county commissioner, when we take our oath of office, that is what we do, is we support the Constitution of the United States. I think with this resolution, which I am in support of, I think we take it a step further and recognize the Second Amendment as part of that Constitution, and reaffirm it. Now, what I would like to do is pass this resolution. Not saying that there isn't some discussion that can be made, maybe as a committee of the whole, to maybe further it. But in my discussion, with people, when I told them about this, they strongly supported it. And I've talked to even, senators, state senators and stuff like that. And if we, I guess where I'm going with that is we need to pressure our federal and state, guys to put that on there. As far as if they're gonna try to do something bigger. I don't know. I guess I would like to see this passed, fully support it. I even wore my Winchester hat today because I was pretty excited about it. That I just got yesterday. And maybe, like I said, Terry, I fully agree with yours. It just, I think this is a good way to get it on there, move forward, and then not saying it's dead, but we can still have that conversation.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is it possible then to set a meeting so that we can discuss this further? Because I truly do not believe is enough with what's going on in our everywhere nowadays with the federal government changes and things that they want with this amendment. I really think we need to be a Second Amendment sanctuary. I think we need to go further.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Go
ahead.
So I'm kind of with Josh, and I understand exactly what Terry's saying. I support that too. But I say Terry, are you okay if we pass this resolution today so we can at least get a resolution down where we stand? And then we amend it later? Is that what or do you want us just to go back and start over?
No, if we want to pass this today, the commitment that we will go back and review it and look at it deeper.
Yes, I think we could certainly do that.
It took us a year to get to this point because it did, honestly.
Yeah.
And we put it off because we knew it is a controversial thing. We thought, last June, I honestly thought we would be meeting in person by fall. I can see the daylight coming when we can actually have a discussion, and maybe even if everybody gets back in Pine County and we have better connections, we can have a better discussion. But I like Matt and Josh's idea of passing something right now and commit to having it on a committee of the whole agenda in the future. Not 10 years future.
I was going to say more than a year.
Yeah. March 24th is when we had our last face-to-face meeting.
And that is, was it that meeting or right after the governor's executive order? It was on the agenda. We were
Right,
going to
it was
discuss
on the
it.
agenda. So
And then we
it
pushed
has-
it off because we wanted to meet in person. And I think this group of commissioners would be great to sit around a table and hash something out. This format, like JJ said, and I said, it's hard because this time, Terry, your audio wasn't working good. Next time it's Steve's. Next time it's JJ's. Next time it's mine.
Yeah.
And I think we get something on the books and maybe we just do something different even on top of this. That's what I'd like to see, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. If it's not putting off for a long time, I think it needs to happen sooner than later.
Well, I get my second vaccine tomorrow, so I'm good to go after that.
I get mine Thursday.
All right.
So is there any other discussion? We do have a motion. on the table?
And a second, Josh seconded.
Yep. Hearing no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. Terry, you're muted.
Oh, no, I.
Okay. And District 4, Commissioner Waltham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Now, we got some exciting folks here with us. We're all exciting, we know that, but we're excited to hear about the Mille Lacs Band Corporate Venture Fiber Optic Project. So Dustin and Beth, are you going to be the presenters?
Yes, we are.
All right.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dustin. Can you share your screen, please?
Yes. Let me see.
Great, great.
All right, cool. Can you guys see the slide deck?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for having us here today. So we have a really kind of short deck around broadband funding opportunity that I think is interesting to everyone in Pine County. So as we talk about anything, I usually like to kind of start with who MLCB is. I think we've talked with Pine County Board on a number of occasions on who we are. I think there's some new faces around the table. So we want to start with our mission in Mille Lacs Corporate Ventures is to improve the quality of life of Mille Lacs band members, those in East Central Minnesota, and all of the communities in which we do business. And so we do that by just being a force to bring passion and ideas into different projects. So one of the primary communities that we really focus on is what we call the Mille Lacs tribal economy. And so these are, again, communities that we have businesses in and are also home to the Mille Lacs Band's 3 districts. And so the easiest way that we can kind of show this is through census tracts. And so the 6 census tracts on the screen are really where we find our biggest desire to move the needle and to invest time and resources and energy around making life better and improving the quality of life for everyone within those census tracts. So according to Minnesota Compass, there's around 20,000 people within those 6 census tracts. Some of them are more sparsely populated. Most of them have different types of economies. So we kind of get into a lot of different interesting things in our work. So one of the interesting things that we've been getting into over the past year, probably around 8 months-ish, is broadband. And so I am also a trustee for the Blandin Foundation. So the Blandin Foundation has been in the business of broadband for better part of a decade. And so they have a Blandin Broadband Resources program that they have been really successful with. And I think, so I started learning more about broadband through those folks, and then started doing some research and understanding where does the tribal economy kind of sit. And with the advent of the pandemic and all of the disruptions to the economics of our world and everyone jumping on these online calls, really kind of put fuel to the fire about like how important is broadband and how does it create disparities within our communities. So this is a slide that Blandin has on their website. So it identifies the goals for the state. So for those of you that aren't familiar, this may be new. For those of you that have been talking about this for a while, it's not at all, but there's basically 2 targets for the state of Minnesota. So by 2022, the goal is to get 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits upload. And by 2026, the state really wants to move communities to 100 down and 20 meg up. And so this image kind of shows all the different parts of the Mille Lacs tribal economy. And as all of you, I'm sure, are fully aware, Pine County has been ranked as number 84 out of 87 counties for the lower of the two goals. When you look at the 100 meg down and 20 up, we're even further down the line. And I think everyone on this call is united around the idea that that's not good enough, and we want to do something to move the needle, and we will do something. So there's lots of reasons why why things are the way they are. We can all kind of point to different things and say that's the reason why. Everything from lower population density to the geography, the physical soil condition, different types of providers. Some have cooperatives in their communities, some don't. There's poor broadband maps, and there's lots of challenges that I think allow the condition of our economy, a broadband economy, to be what it is. So I'll turn it over to Beth now. Beth.
Thanks, Dustin. So Mille Lacs
I think she froze. Groups, are you there? Okay, she froze.
Go ahead, Dustin, just in case.
Go
ahead, Dustin, just in case I freeze up.
Okay. So with all of the, we started dancing with Pine County with the Blandon community program. I see it's on your agenda later today, so I won't go too much into that. But we really started talking about where is the specific disconnects in Pine County and where can we kind of move the needle. So we're doing a lot of studying around what's wrong and where can we make an impact. So over the past month, there's been a lot of action, I think, at the federal level around appropriations. So there's been numerous stimuluses that have come down, and so there's a newer appropriation kind of in the pipeline. So the appropriation is coming from the Department of Agriculture through the Rural Utility Service Reconnect program. And so we're in conjunction with the Mille Lacs Band, and they are submitting a project for themselves over in the different census tract. So we wanted to see if there's a collaborative way we could kind of submit an application for Pine County specifically. There were a couple of limitations to the request. One of them was around the dollar value. I believe the amount of appropriations were kind of capped around $8 million. That would be a project that would be considered. So we looked at a couple of the census tracts, again, that were kind of a shared desire to move the needle on. So we focused on census tract 9504. So with that census tract, we jumped on calls with a local internet service provider, Savage Communication. I'm sure all of you are familiar with them. So they connected with a mapping company that really looked at how many miles were within that census tract, and what was along with those miles, how many passings would we have to go by. So there were 2440 passings. So the passings include both residential, commercial, and business physical buildings. So they're able to determine kind of the cost per passing and also the cost per mile. So if we look a little bit closer on the detailed project map, so this is, again, census tract 9504. So the total cost of piping out asymmetrical broad fiber to this area was a little under $8 million, which kind of was our desire to keep the project underneath that to be competitive. The areas that are identified by the little hexagon looking thing, I think that's a hex, were areas that were already served by fiber, asymmetrical fiber. So they included the city of Sandstone. And so we focused on kind of the other areas in there after removing the areas that were already connected. Beth, did you want to add anything on that slide?
I'm not sure that you can hear me. We're looking at the pink shaded. And again, that 33 per capita is really a too low as anything over 5.
That sounds like just
Thing that they're looking for.
that's what your computer.
I may have locked up again, Dustin. If you can hear me, you can proceed.
Yep.
Dustin, I think you'll just have to continue. We get a lot of feedback from that.
Okay, cool. So that was the application we submitted this past week to Representative Stauber on April 3rd. I'm sure many of you have seen that. So the next phase after that would be really taking a deeper dive into that estimate and project scope. So there are a couple of key things that should Pine County get awarded the $7.4 million, then how would you disperse it out, and what are kind of the rules around that? I think there's a greater discussion that needs to be had around affordability. So it's not just putting the lines and connecting a home with the fiber, but there's also, can the person living there afford what's being offered? And there's also kind of the continuation of the Blandin program with the cohort. So we're striving to really produce, I think, a regional plan. So there's surveys going out to gather data on where people are in terms of speed and connectability for broadband, and really finding a way to have kind of this collaborative data collection across all of our little region across East Central. So one of the things that we've been looking at on the tribal economy side that I thought we would share is really, like, we want something that someone that's not familiar with broadband speak that can understand it really, really quickly. And so, and we also wanted kind of a dashboard that could say, are we winning or not? And so this was one that we put together for the 6 census tracts. So again, start with the population, how many people are in there, what is the household income of those census tracts, and what is the percentage of poverty? And then from there, there's really, like, we look at it as 3 goals. So of those 20,171 citizens in there, how many of them are connected to some type of a broadband? So that would be, if we could get really granular on, like, let's say there's 15,000 of those that are connected, that would give us a percentage that would show us, are we getting close? Are we getting further, or where's our goal? The second goal is really this idea around fiber being kind of the gold standard. So right now we are already understanding and experiencing that that fiber is important, but even looking down to the future 20 years from now, we don't want to invest in a technology that we have to reinvest in again 5 years from now. So the beauty of fiber is that it has a longer life expectancy than some of the other types of lines. It also has the ability to be able to increase speed as technology kind of increases. So the infrastructure would still stay in place, and then the speed would be able to improve based on the service provider. So we wanted to track basically the amount of households that are powered on fiber lines. And so I think, so again, on there, kind of putting an easy to read number on there. And then the third is really around affordability. It does us no good if we build infrastructure out to some of these communities and the broadband service that people would have access to is like $120 a month or something that is extremely unaffordable for people that are living in our community within those household incomes. And so when we talk about affordable housing, there's a lot of data around there that the federal government and many developers define as what affordable is, and that's actually 30% of a person's income. So if you look at what the incomes are in the tribal economy, if you take 30% of that, take that number and divide it by 12, that's what people should be paying in rent in order to live a good life. So with broadband, we were thinking the same thing. what's the research out there that says like here's what broadband should be at if it's considered affordable. So again, creating kind of a metric around what that is and how close we are to achieving that metric, I think would be really cool, not just for the tribal economy, but all of our region and especially Pine County. So I think that was kind of our presentation there. Let me get out of this share screen. So just wanted to kind of open it up to any feedback on any questions or conversations.
Thank you very much, Dustin.
Thank you very much, Dustin.
We've got something feeds back whenever I talk. I don't know what the problem is. Anyway, thanks for your presentation, and we have supported that your endeavor in a couple of ways, and so we did get a call out of the blue from a lady that is connected with the other side of the political spectrum than Representative Stauber, and we sent them your information, so because they also want to make sure something happens in East Central Minnesota. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions, comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I just want to say thank you to the Mille Lacs Band. The area that you're choosing to serve is going to be some of the hardest area in Pine County. And so I think it's really exciting that you're doing this, so thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Terry. I think we've had email conversations back and forth through Sheena too about some other work that we're doing around business incubation and entrepreneurship. And again, I really appreciate all of the folks in Pine County and all the good work you guys do in helping move the needle. And we're ready, willing, and able to stand by on some of these cool initiatives.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you. We'll move on then to dependent care flex spending increase for 2021.
Jackie, do you want to take that?
Sure. Through the American Rescue Plan Act, there was a provision that allowed employers to increase the pre-tax limit for dependent care flexible spending just for 2021. And it would allow us to increase the amount from $5,000 to $10,500. And we researched this with our broker, and there's really, it's really a good benefit, and we feel it's something that we should act on. So it would allow our employees, rather than maxing out at $5,000 for 2021, they would be able to max out at $10,500. So we're asking the board for approval for this provision.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think it's awesome. So I will make a motion to accept that or to pass that.
I'll second.
And just for clarification, I got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. It's all the employees' money anyway, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Any more questions, comments? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldem.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the shoreland management ordinance amendments.
All right. So I've introduced myself, but I also brought Jeremy Williamson along with today. He's an environmental technician in the zoning department, and he has a lot of background in watershed science, lake ecology, stuff like that. So just in case his knowledge becomes helpful in this discussion. So you can just have a seat, Jeremy, if you want. So the zoning board has been working through a few potential ordinance amendments. And we just thought it may be worthwhile to kind of run them by the county board for kind of a sniff test to get an idea if we're on the right track. I coordinate the zoning board. It's a 7-member board appointed by the county board. They have the authority to approve variances, conditional use permits, but they also serve as both the Board of Adjustment and Planning Commission. So they do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to developing ordinances, amending ordinances, things like that, to make sure that and that they do the heavy lifting, but any of those ordinance changes would need to go before the county board for actual adoption. So Debbie, do you have my slideshow? Or Ryan?
Ryan, would you put it up?
I can do that. Why don't I quick share? Can I quick email it to you, Ryan? Would that work? I apologize.
Where do you have it?
I'm gonna email it to you if that works. I'll also send it to David. So.
You got it, Ryan, or you want me to do it?
So Sven says to Ole. Yeah, I'm just kidding. There we go. I didn't even have to go into Sven and Ole jokes. All righty. Yeah. There we go. I'll just let you know when we need to advance slides. So the shoreline management ordinance was adopted back in, I forget if it's 1991 or 1993. It's a set of state rules for shoreline areas. It's all the land area within 1,000 feet of public water lakes, 300 feet of certain rivers and streams, and a 100-year floodplain. So that there's a set of state rules, and the responsibility to administer and enforce the rules is kind of passed down to the counties. Townships and cities have the authority as well to adopt that set of rules. So we've been doing this a long time. And in 2016, there was a significant batch of amendments to the ordinance, basically, which most of those things were really just kind of keeping us up to date with the state rules. We have to be as restrictive as the state rules. We can be more restrictive. We cannot be less. So this is a little snippet here on this slide from the ordinance itself, which kind of describes the purpose of the rules. But I just highlighted a few things that health, safety, and welfare, it's for protection of the local tax base, minimizing or preventing pollution. And it talks about how the legislature has delegated responsibility to local governments. And really, the rules seek to conserve the economic and natural environmental values of shorelands. Understanding this is some of the most valuable property we have in Pine County. Wise development of those lands to preserve that land base, its value and its integrity is helpful. Next slide. So we've had this rule since 1993. We've made a few minor changes in 2016. I think there was one little snippet in that 2016 amendment that was a little more restrictive than state rules, but generally we have been following the state rules and not being more restrictive. But there, as we go through time, I feel our role as staff people is kind of help guide those policies, any potential changes in line with community visions, community interests, but then bring those things forward to the county board, zoning board for actual decision making and direction on. But this is from the county comprehensive plan that we adopted back in 2017. It was a public survey. It was a general survey that went to everybody it was available to anybody in the county. And it was eye-opening how protect natural areas and water qualities rose to the top as one of the higher level interests of among the items on this table. So there was some backing there for just affirming the importance of things like the shoreline ordinance. Next slide. And then as I've been working through, so at the staff level, we spend so much time out in these shoreline areas working with these rules, and we kind of see where they're working well, where there's some room for improvement. And the zoning board recommended we get better feedback from the community. So this past February, we had a survey, we sent it out to all of the lake associations that included Pokegama and Cross Lake and Grindstone, Big Pine, the Windermere Lakes Association. And we got 219 responses. And these are a couple of the charts from that survey. So the one on the left there, status of current development. The way I look at this, I see that the biggest chunk of the pie is that 68% of the folks in the lake associations are saying some improvements for wiser development in shorelands are warranted. And then the dark blue there at 14%, those folks think that we need to do some major improvements in how we administer shoreline regulations. So well over the majority of the participants felt we should at least be talking about where can we make things better here. The views on water quality on the right there also shows it's a pretty small fraction. Only 5% of the folks are not concerned about water quality. And then people, I think it's the 40% chart there. That's 40% piece of the pie that says they're very concerned and they expect high protection levels on the lake. That also, and then 25% some restrictions. So you've got at least 65% of the respondents saying you need to do at least a little bit to improve these shoreline regulations. Is how I interpret that. Any questions on either of those charts? Okay, next slide. Let me grab my water bottle because I'm coughing. Okay, so I added this slide in here. This is a little fact sheet we made. I think the purpose is to say you can adopt all the rules you want to protect certain things in the community. But if you don't, education is so important in part of that, and education and just working with people. So that's something that must accompany. And in some cases, that could just that in itself may be more effective than changing the rules. Next slide. So here are the proposed amendments that the zoning board has been working on. Grading and filling, this is really dirt work projects along the lake shore or river shore. The minimum lot widths, guest quarters and accessory dwellings, various mitigation plans, and the ordinary high water level and road right-of-way setback averaging. So I've got a slide for each of these that we'll cruise through. Next slide. So if you're going to do dirt work along the shore, there are standards. And what we're seeing so commonly nowadays is riprap. And it's something that is highly desirable by many people, but also there's been kind of a lack of education. In the conservation world, whether you're working with conservation engineers, Soil and Water Conservation District, Minnesota DNR, riprap is an important tool, but there are also ways in which it is not helpful in that it doesn't provide any filtration for stormwater that is moving towards the water, unlike vegetation. So a lot of communities kind of look for opportunities in policy and ordinance to increase the amount of vegetation that you have along that lake shore. So understanding the shoreland ordinance jurisdiction begins at the ordinary high water level, which is generally about, where the water sits for a significant amount of time. Below that line is regulated by the DNR. So riprap are projects that are multi-jurisdictional because so often they straddle that line. The goal here was really to mimic the DNR regulations, because what we find is the DNR has one individual that, it enforces the rules for, 2 or 3 counties. And there's just so many projects that we thought it would be less confusing for the public just to have a little bit more uniformity on standards. So this actually makes it such that you cannot install riprap except for where there is demonstrated erosion and it's needed to correct that erosion. And this is something that we've been thoughtful and careful about, just noticing how popular it is. And as you just add rock and cover all of that shoreline habitat, it is something that uncontrolled years into the future would be one of those things that there's nothing left. Why did we just cover it all with rock for decades and decades? And then let's see. Yeah. Any questions on that? Okay, next slide. And this is similar, the grading and filling in sections. It's becoming more common to want beach sand blankets, and these are similar to riprap, where they straddle that ordinary high water level. The state has rules below the ordinary high, we have rules above, and we're seeking to be more consistent with the state rules. And basically, the state acknowledges that if you don't have a sandy beach natively, and you're introducing sand to that area, it doesn't stay there. It washes out. The state rules only allow you to place it once or twice. You can't put fabric beneath it. And that sand essentially coats the aquatic plants, spawning grounds and stuff like that. And it's damaging to water quality. So this language basically prohibits beach sand blankets within the shore impact zone, which is half the building setback. Contained sandboxes not exceeding 32 square feet are allowed without permit. So it's a really way, so you can still, the kids can make the sandcastles and all that, but we're not going to be just covering that near shore area with sand kind of consistently. Do you have anything that I'm missing on these thoughts, Jeremy?
Not yet.
Okay. So that's everything, I believe, for the grading and filling section. Any questions on that? And again, this has already been recommended by the zoning board. And then we would have to go get a DNR approval before adoption of any of these things. And then we'd also have to hold public hearing. But if anything that is just not sitting well, we want to hear that from you sooner than later is kind of what we're after. So the next slide, minimum lot widths. So this is another one where we've simply followed the minimum standards required by the state for all of these years. And there was a couple of years ago where we had a residential platted development proposed along Cross Lake Road. And all the neighbors showed up and they thought we were nuts to allow these lots to be created at 75 feet wide. So the ordinance kind of, it has, depending on the classification of the water body, whether it's a recreational development lake, that's by the letter B there, or general development lake, you can see that the standards can be different. So general development lakes, those would be like Cross Lake and Pocahontas Lake primarily, and these are just on sewered lakes. It also makes a distinction whether it's sewered or not, because the idea being, if there's no public sewer and you have to have an on-site septic system, you'd have to have a larger lot to accommodate that building one. So general development lake, where those changes were primarily talking about Cross Lake and Pocahontas Lake. And for recreational development lake, there's only one recreational development under by letter B there. There's only one of those that has public sewer, and that is Sand Lake. But it is mostly built out, and we just thought it makes sense to kind of have a little more, it would be less logical to have a higher standard in a general development lake than a recreational development lake. That's probably more detail than anybody cared to absorb. Sorry. So anyway, we heard from folks that the 75-foot wide lots were too dense. It was unsafe along the roadway. Two driveways would be close together. You have more neighborly disputes and all those things. And then we have a new recreational or residential platted development where the developer also agrees, and he's proposing, it's kind of in the concept stage at this point, but he's proposing them at 100 feet wide, just like this ordinance amendment would require. So he sees the same thing as the neighbors did a couple of years ago. So that's the proposal there, to require a little more lot width on newly created lots. Now, lots that are in existence and want to build, this does not make them unbuildable. As long as they can still meet all the setbacks, they would be allowed to do that. Next slide. Guest quarters. So this is, and this I think is maybe a little less less impactful than some of the other things, where it's becoming increasingly popular to build a garage with an apartment in it. And in the ordinance, there are requirements for guest cottages, where if you want to have like, a guest cottage, which is secondary to your principal dwelling, there are standards that limit the size of that guest cottage. And the square footage is limited, the height is limited, and then you have to have a certain amount of lot width. And the purpose is really to limit the density of how many households are occupying that lake shore and the density of the development along the lake shore. So the question came up of how do these garage apartments fit into that? Because oftentimes that apartment is in the upper story. And this is really, this would actually make things a little less restrictive, where it would allow those guests, it uses the term guest quarters instead of guest cottage. And then they're not limited to the height requirements and things like that. And it's seeing value in the idea of housing some of those property improvements, the garage and the guest bedroom or guest apartment. It's seeing value in putting those under one roof as opposed to multiple structures. Next slide on that.
Caleb?
Yes, please.
Those guest cottages, we've talked about parents haven't allowed, build a little guest house for your parents to live. And everybody seems to think that's a acceptable thing that people should do. But as parents age out of those, and now you have this guest apartment or guest house or guest garage apartment, and then somebody offers you $700 a month to rent that, what happens then?
So I think this is a little bit different than what you might pursue for an ordinance in areas away from lakes and rivers. And the difference being that there is a threshold for lot width and area and how big that guest cabin can be in the shoreline area, where we really wouldn't have authority to have things less restrictive. So, I mean, there'd be no reason that they would have to decommission it as long as it, you know, met the square footage requirement, the height requirement, and that guest cottage could stay there in perpetuity. Also, things like campers are allowed in the ordinance as well. So if it would be a park model or something like that, there could be opportunity there as well. So if it was something where, okay, what if the person says, we want to move my mother-in-law in here into a small cabin, but, you know, for one reason or another, it's not permitted. Maybe the lot's too small, maybe there's too much impervious surface. There would be a variance procedure for that, I guess, is the other opportunity. I don't know if that answers your question. Oh, you're muted there.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so this just provides the language for that. And I guess, again, I would highlight, I think the DNR also sees that, and I got most of this material from the DNR. So while it essentially makes things a little less restrictive, it is still kind of harmonious with the intent of the ordinance. So next slide. Variance mitigation plans. Variances are, in 2016, the state rules, well, I don't know exactly what year the state rules changed, but we adopted the state changes in 2016 where if you have a home that is too close to the water body, it used to be that you could add on to it without variance as long as you didn't encroach any closer. Same with the road right of way. There's a 20-foot setback to keep things kind of out of the right of way. And you could add on if you were too close, as long as you didn't encroach closer to the road. So in 2016, we adopted the state changes that basically says you may not expand those structures without variance if you don't meet the setback requirements. So that was a little painful. People, there's a lot of folks, particularly as we're watching baby boomers who want to move to the cabin, and it was built in 1930, and it was built 40 feet away from the lake. Now it's got to be 100 feet, and they got to make it accessible, or the kitchen isn't big enough for full-time residents. And that's a statewide trend that people are wanting to, you know, occupy these places full-time. So whether we like it or not, they have to go through the variance process for those types of requests. And our zoning board has been pretty good about processing those, and you know, as if you can provide just good justification of why you can't meet the requirement, they've been very thoughtful about in processing those. But one thing, but this essentially is a tool to, the way I see it anyway, and Matt sits on that board, so I welcome any feedback, but I see it as a tool that helps the applicant strengthen their application, where they can create a mitigation plan that offsets the impact of that variance. If we're saying that we don't want people to build at 40 feet away from the lake, which is what the rules are basically suggest, then why would you give them the variance? Well, they can offset that. So this is a standardized process that would be required. And there's other counties that do stuff like this, where we basically, you know, adapted the language from. So you kind of score the degree of which they are non-conforming at the time of application. So, you know, and there's these multipliers that you apply to the actual setback. So you would say, so on a recreational development lake, the required setback is 100 feet. Well, if you're 50 feet back, 50 times that multiplier of 1, you're going to get a score of 50. And then they have to produce a mitigation plan that produces a score of 100 at the time of application. So the next slide shows some of those activities then that you can produce, which basically kind of helps bring your variance request into harmony with the intent of the ordinance and the comprehensive plan and stuff like that. So it's basically helping limit stormwater runoff, erosion, and help screen that structure as viewed from the water body. So we kind of maintain aesthetic, natural appeal, all of that. So there's kind of a menu of options that then we would work with people to kind of customize the plan, something that would work for them. But then they come up with a plan that they bring before the zoning board, and the zoning board has 5 criteria that they have to work through that they're defined in statute. So it's not just, is this a big deal or not? Yay or nay? It's no, you have to meet these specific criteria. And this makes some of those criterias more, or the application more favorable when ranked against those criteria. Matt, do you have anything to chime in on that?
I'm waiting until we get to the averaging.
Okay. So next slide. Setback averaging. So the ordinance prescribes setback requirements from the water. And it's usually 50 feet to 150 feet, depending on the water body. Now, the ordinance provides this language where you can come up, if there's existing structures on the 2 adjacent sides, you can come up to the average setback of those 2, provided you don't come into the short impact zone. Short impact zone, as shown on this figure, is half of the building setback. So if this building setback is 100 feet, the short impact zone is at 50 feet. So if the 2 neighbors were both at, one was at 30 feet, one was at 40 feet, you can't come up to 35 feet because you'd be in the short impact zone. Instead, you'd have to be at 50. So you can come up to the average, provided you don't go into the short impact zone. So the language is, as you read it, where structures exist on adjoining lots. So another zoning administrator from a different local government prompted me that they've had legal issues with this, where if one of the neighbors has, a little boathouse down there, well, that's a structure. And the other neighbor on the other side has a little boathouse. So can I build my house at the average of those 2 boathouses or whatever it may be? So we discussed having, amending this to say where principal dwellings exist on adjoining lots, because I think that is really what the intent of this was. And in that discussion, the zoning board kind of thought, let's axe the whole thing. So they did not want to allow setback averaging for new construction. Or let's say if there's an existing house that someone wanted to add on to, we have to look at, do you meet the setback requirements in order to add on? So that would impact those as well. I did look at the permits issued in the last 2 years to actually put some numbers at this. How many of the permitted new dwellings and dwelling additions would have been affected? And I believe it was like 2 out of 47 were permitted this way. One for new dwellings, one of which had more than adequate space. They could have moved back and met that 100-foot setback. One of them couldn't have built without variance. So it was a little surprising. It seems like it comes up more than that, but the data didn't the data suggested it's not a huge issue. But I think the zoning board likes the idea of kind of over time creating more compliance and keeping development farther back from the lake. So they suggested this. One of the members of the zoning board was involved with the comprehensive plan up in Windermere Township. And Windermere Township does tons of shoreline permitting. They do perhaps more than we do, just because of the amount of lakeshore they've got up there. And they had, in their comprehensive plan, this was one of the recommendations they had as well. So it's not like it's, a crazy idea that only this group would have come up with or anything like that. But anyway.
He's on the fence with me, isn't he?
Huh?
He's on the fence with me on this one too.
Sure. So Matt thinks that this is a little bit,
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair. A question. So the DNR allows averaging. And my concern is we create lots that people can't build on, which is going to affect our county. And I've had 2 complaints recently from contractors who they want to do additions but their building is it's already there. It's been there since 1890 on one of them. And they should be able to build their addition on their house so they can retire because everybody benefits. And Caleb worked an excellent program with him. Okay, in the variance process, we can do this, but you're going to have to add some flower beds or something just to stop runoff. So, which I think is the way to do this. But right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the zoning board guys, they voted to say, nope, we're not going to allow averaging and we're going to force people back. That's what they want to do. And I think if the DNR is fine with averaging, which helps our people instead of saying, yep, you can do your addition, but we have to have a work plan, which I know you can work out with them, right? On most cases. That's where that's where I feel more comfortable because I don't want to, it's hard for me for the government to say you can't put an addition on your house and retire here. And I know last year a guy was shut down and he left and he built his house in Wisconsin on a lake. So that doesn't benefit us at all. So I'm not saying I'm mad at anybody, but I'm saying we need to find balance. And I think the DNR found balance when they do averaging. And why should we try to make it more strict on our people who are trying to do something? So that's my open for discussion part. That's the part that I don't get. And I don't think it will interfere with your other pieces of this puzzle either if we stay with the DNR's rules of averaging.
so I guess, if the county board kind of agrees with Matt that it seems like maybe that is a little bit over the top, and it's something that you all can chew on. We could, it could simply be struck from the list of amendments. There could also be options for, can you allow the averaging except where it is utilized, you must have a mitigation plan or something. And then you've also talked about folks who have been permitted since back in 1993 through setback averaging. What happens to those if they want to add on? Where, can you afford those things that now become non-conforming, the opportunity to add on without variance and all that? So
I think you have to still deal with their saying. You still can make a plan with them and make that landowner understand. But what I really don't know why we would try to be more strict than the DNR to stop people from doing something on their land. Unless it's site specific for some problem. But that's where I need help.
Chairman?
Well, I have some technical aspects of that. I understand where you're coming from also and allowing people to do what they need to do to retire. I do get that.
The mic for those guys.
Yes. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is that there is actually a technical reason to not allow it. I think you still can. Caleb just presented this variance process, and where I came from, we had performance-based shoreland zoning. So in order to do whatever it is you were doing, it was based off a runoff curve number, which was vegetation type, soil, things like that. In that whole process, I went through, we picked a lake and we measured every square inch of impervious surface on average for structures and we move things forward, we move things back. I use the P8 stormwater modeling software. And then I use some other software. And between the two softwares, the difference between being at 50 feet from the lake and 100 feet, by moving back 50 feet without any of the mitigation that we talked of, there was a 60% reduction in phosphorus load to the lake. It blew my mind because when I was doing it, we went through this process and I thought, I'll be 1-2% and nobody's going to care. But I ran it several times and P8, I believe it was 60%. I'd have to go back and find my models and look. So from the technical aspect, I think that's maybe why it would be. I do think there's ways around. I agree with you. There is mitigation that can happen. And with mitigation, as you can see from this list, kind of vegetation is king. But the technical point of that, I think, is why you would maybe take a step back and take a little harder look at it. And that's it. Unless there's...
Well, I just get to why even have a variance process if you're not going to let somebody, you're not going to have a variance anyway, right? So variances are made so we can help people make something happen on a property. That's just my simple understanding. And I think that's where we find the balance. And I think the DNR kind of found that. But I think, yeah, I understand you might have to mitigate something and say, we'll let you do this, but you're going to have to change something down here. I think that's fine. You know, but at least they can have their house and a place to live and retire or something. And I don't know where we're at. I just think that's where there's room for a lot of discussion versus us saying nope, you know, and then drive people away from the spot too. You know, I'll leave it at that. You know, that's just my position.
I agree with Matt.
I'm sorry?
I said, I agree with you, Matt.
Thank you.
I get more confused the more I think I know. But
Sorry.
I look at, as I putz around like Cross Lake, for instance, because it's close to me. And you know, over the years, we've had 50-foot lots and 100-foot lots and 75-foot lots and 100-foot lots. And people had no regard for setbacks in the early days. And so now somebody comes along and says, I want to tear that cabin down that's been there since 1933, and I want to build my retirement house there. And then they're being told, well, you can't build it 1 foot bigger, closer to the water than it already was. Or, you know, I think some human intervention needs to be involved here, because the rules have changed so much, so many times. How do we ever get to a set of rules that's fair in 2021? I guess life isn't fair, but we should try to be fair to people.
And I think if the concern is conservation, I think you can achieve conservation in a way, if you're thoughtful, you can achieve that in a way that still allows people to build what they need to build.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that we want to keep the lake clean, the rivers clean. That's the resources forever, right? We don't want to be polluting them, but I think there's a way to make it work.
I think so too, and I don't know the way. I honestly don't know the way.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Terry.
I have a question also, Caleb, on lot size. So you were saying that if they had owned the property prior to when the new restrictions came in, say they had a 25-foot lot or whatever it would be, that they would be allowed to build on if they could meet the restrictions that were set. However, that was a lot that was there from way back when, and they can't buy any land after that. So then we're telling somebody that they can't utilize the property that they've had for a long time. How does that actually work?
And you might have cut out just enough that I think I got you. For the lot width requirement, there's a provision in the ordinance that allows you to build, even if your lot does not meet the required lot width, provided you can meet all the setbacks. So I think that compounded with this slide that's showing right now could be difficult on folks, but that on itself, I think I would not expect that would affect anybody's ability to use their property. The one thing is, we did look at, in order to build a guest cottage, you do have to have duplex lot size. So there would maybe be some places where they could build a guest cottage today, and after the adoption of the rules, they maybe could not. That could happen. And I don't know that that's not deliberately what we want, but that's kind of how it works. But that's one nuance, and, you know, I'd have to look at the numbers, but there's not a lot of guest cottages that get permitted. So it's also the concept of how big of an issue is it really? I don't know.
So I've taken a lot of phone calls over the years from people who, Windermere is a really prime example with that. They owned a lot and it was the right size when they purchased it and everything was good. And then they went to build on it and they were told that they couldn't. So all of a sudden they had property that they couldn't utilize, that they've been paying taxes on for years. And it was really frustrating for them. And that's one of the things I'm concerned about with this also.
Yeah. I would take any anecdotes, how do I say this kindly? Anecdotes from Windermere Township. They've struggled with their enforcement of ordinance requirements up there. I would take some of those anecdotes with a grain of salt. Unfortunately,
Can I jump in real quick on that?
Please, thank you.
Okay, this is Kelly Schroeder, County Auditor Treasurer. Maybe this is where you were going, Caleb, but just because the lot size does not meet current lot size, so it was made a 75-foot lot and now a 100-foot lot is what's required, that does not make it unbuildable. What would make it unbuildable would be the setbacks. And so I just want to make sure that's clear. Us making the lots bigger now doesn't make all those old lots unbuildable.
That was what I was trying to say. Thank you. Any comments? I appreciate your time. And as people think more about it, you feel free to give me a call, and then I can report back to the zoning board. It sounds like this one for sure, and maybe the lot widths are worthy of a little more discussion.
I don't mind the lot width so much changing back to 100 feet. I think they were 100 feet at one point, and then when the sewer went in, didn't they get downsized?
That makes sense.
That worked? I believe. Anyway, but the setback thing is needs some more work, I think, is what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
Caleb, you guys are doing a great job. It's not that. It's just, I get pushback from people working, out there too.
Yeah.
So I know you found the balance with this last one. And that you made the guy do the rain, whatever's garden and stuff. So I know that's a way to work around it instead of just have the no black and white thing you can't build here.
And it's kind of a unique thing where the zoning board is kind of given this authority to work through these things, but then you guys have to say at the end of the day. So we did kind of prompt them that, a couple of these things the county board might have some concern for. And they said, that sounds like healthy democracy is how they responded. So I don't think there's any concern for you guys, having some rebuttals. So that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to legislative update.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
the legislature was in Easter recess last week, so there is no update at this point.
Thank you. Commissioner updates, new commissioner training. Anything to report?
I don't think so.
Okay. CBR Accelerate Program. There's 3 of us plus some staff members taking part in that. I found it to be very interesting and a lot of stimulating conversation. And I think we're moving forward already, which is awesome. I think the presentation today that we got from Dustin, I think everything is lining up. I don't know that would have happened had we not been involved at the level we're involved with. So hats off to Pine County. I think we're moving in the right direction.
I want to add, I think we have an excellent team on that committee. It's a good.
It's a good mix. We've got everybody there seems to be willing to share their opinion, which is awesome. And nobody seems to be stuck in a box as this is the way we have to do it, or I'm going to take my ball and go home. So I appreciate that.
I would agree. It seems like already the opportunities are starting to open up, and just these few short weeks, just to show how interested Pine County is in broadband. Seems like it's got a lot of stuff already buzzing and already talking. So hopefully we can get something rolling here. So.
Arrowhead County.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we met on March 17th. I'm gonna hit some of the legislative highlights because it's always my favorite. Of course, the bill was being heard the week after, or the next after our meeting, but the Health and Human Services payback portion we were all worried about. It sounds like everybody's on board that we're not going to be on the hook for that, but I don't think it's finalized yet. But it sounds like we're not going to be on that. And it sounds like the CPO thing we talked about still is hanging in there. So it might, because there was, we saw the memo last time where there was reduction, but that's still hanging in there. The mental health initiative is a top priority with both House and Senate. And then there's a tax forfeit blight bill that's going through again. And then I think we heard about the tax court case that was happening with where they were overtaxed. Well, it came in 10% higher, which is not good for the counties that were affected by that. They're going to have a bigger hit than they originally planned. And I think that's pretty much it. It was just, of course, the county roundtables are always fun, but I was going to talk to Caleb, and I'll just throw it out there. Aiken County had Commissioner Nemi reported that a motorcycle group bought like 160 acres that went up for sale. Just some guy bought it. And then they put a motorcycle club in there. And of course, right where the people around it were like in $400,000 and $500,000 retirement homes. And it is just, he said it's taken him 50 hours a week handling the complaints that are coming in on this group, which is interesting because that could happen anywhere in a big rural county like ours too. But that's pretty much it on that. So.
See if you're muted.
Teleconference. We had a meeting with Senator Smith's office. Terry, you were there, right?
I was.
You got anything you want to talk about there?
Well, we talked a lot about the broadband and the need for broadband, and they're right on that. They were very affirmative that that's one of their priorities.
Then we talked about the Recovery Act dollars and what we can do with that. So,
and I think they still were kind of unsure as to what was going to come out with that too. There was everybody's going to be waiting.
Right. But it was good that they reached out to us. You know, it's good to have a lot of our fingers on a lot of those pulses. So anyway,
Yes.
Thanks, Terry, for doing that. WorkFast Auto Tech grad program.
Yeah, I did attend that last Monday, I think it was. It was pretty good time. The college there always does something good. President Mulford was there. Commissioner of Ag Tom Peterson was there. So they gave a few words, both of them, and then I did talk a little bit. And a lot of thank you towards Pine County was done. And like I told them, we couldn't do it without the cooperation between everybody. The college there, what they did was such a short period of time was just awesome. What they came back with us when we approached them about sending some funds their way. So it was good. It was happy. A lot of people were very excited and see what happens going forward. So
Thanks. Lower St. Croix Policy Committee, we had a meeting and actually we're done with the planning. We're actually they're doing work phase now. They're in the process of hiring an agronomist and so it'll be exciting to see how that program moves along. It's never ever going to be smooth sailing with that group because it's such a diverse makeup of that board. But it will. Somebody said democracy in action. That's it. So we will continue to monitor that. There's already some good coming out of that for some of the farmers in southern Pine County, which are in the lower St. Croix watershed. There's some programs that they're going to be able to take part in this summer. So that's good. Minnesota Rural Broadband Legislative Day.
Everywhere I turn, so they talked about the broadband and how the state is supporting the broadband. I've done federal things and they've been saying how they're supporting the broadband. I think that we hit this broadband committee at just the right time to be helped to get this taken care of in Pine County.
I would agree, Terry. We're everybody's noticing those that really need some broadband help. So I think we're in the right track. NLX was canceled. Township officers meeting. Terry and I were there. I thought it was a good meeting. I told Terry the disappointing part to me is, there's 33 townships and some of the larger townships have kind of dropped out of attendance. So, it's if you look at the representation of all the townships, you get numbers there, but the number of people that are represented is small.
I agree.
But they're the people that are there are passionate about what they do, and we're always there to offer assistance to whatever we can. So we appreciate what the townships do for everybody. Matt, you got a update on HRA?
I do. I'm gonna start with, we had our regular meeting on March 24th, and Claudia Bloom was, welcomed and introduced, and she's gonna be a great addition, I think, to that group. And then it was pretty much a general meeting until we got to the part where the City of Sandstone Representative Kathy George was there, and she offered to the HRA at that meeting that the city had put a purchase agreement on the North Court Apartments. And part of the deal the city was working on, but somehow something changed in their plans, but they offered to sell it to the HRA board, which ensued a lot of discussion. So the building itself is a 4 one-bedroom, 4 two-bedroom with 8 HUD vouchers attached to it. In any event, that meeting ended with organizing another meeting the following week on the Friday, the April 2nd, with the owner of the building and the city and the HRA board, and then Dave, our county administrator, Dave Mankey, jumped in to help add a lot of resources to this thing. So we had that meeting on the 2nd, which I thought was a really good meeting. And I think the HRA board is very interested in grabbing this as a housing project. The problem with it is with the contract that it sits with right now, with HUD and the government, is that through 2024 or some fiscal year 2024, it has to be attached to a nonprofit. And our HRA in Pine County is not it's a private nonprofit. And I think we're a public nonprofit, which is the difference. It has to be attached to a private nonprofit. So, then I should back up. In that first meeting, Mary Kay offered A Place for You is a private nonprofit. So that conversation came to the second meeting too. I omitted that, sorry. So there we have the Place for You in Pine City, which is a private nonprofit. And we have the HRA, Pine County HRA, which is a public nonprofit. So we're trying to figure out a way to make that work as a business thing, because the HRA is interested in helping that. And if they could be, A Place for You could be a private nonprofit partner in that. And maybe Dave, you should help me out, because we're going to get into some technical things that you're probably better versed on than I am. So go ahead and jump in here.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. So I guess we're going to walk through the analysis process. I've talked to Ellers and Associates, and so they're on board to do the fiscal analysis, the pro forma, and then look at how we could borrow the money to fund the transaction. And then also the county attorney has been invited to the table to look at the ownership piece and how that would structure. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, but when you look back over the last several years about, I think, the county board's desire that the HRA become more engaged in housing generally, this has filtered to the top as maybe their first effort to do that.
And it sounds like the structure was built in 1985. It's on the site where Chris's old grocery store was. Anyway.
And maybe just one comment, the reason that it is a project of public interest is there are those 8 site-based Section 8 vouchers.
Yeah.
And so if those are maintained, those would stay in the community versus if a private sector buyer buys the building, they could move those out of town.
And they have dollars attached to them from the federal government. And I don't understand that process, but anyway.
It sounds like,
yeah, I think the deal will have to work out with the rent handling, the stuff and all that, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, it sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other reports?
It's been pretty nice out, Mr. Chair.
It has been. I think we should be out. Check on the upcoming meetings. I know I've had a lot of them in the last 2 weeks. I think I had 6 days in a row one week and 5 days in a row the next week, so that I had some county meeting. So anyway, I do not see any other business that needs to come before the board. Have a safe trip home, Terry, and we'll see you when you get here. With
Hey,
that,
when's JJ, when you coming back? Never?
Real soon. No, I'm finishing up my work here and I'll be home shortly.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Take care, everybody.
Okay.
My Ryan. Have a good day.
Yeah, we'll declare
Have a
the
good day,
meeting
everyone.
adjourned.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Do we need to sign
Thank you,
that
Steve.
paperwork? Yep. You care what color we use?
Blue? You want blue? I think, let me check. No, that's not, that's black.
Debbie?
Yes,
And then-
Steve?
I have to be,
I'm gonna give you.
I have to
you're
be
gonna
in
put these
town
the
at
record
2
then?
o'clock, sign some papers at the bank. So after that, I will run up to the courthouse.
Okay, I'll see you then.
Okay.
Thank
It'll
you.
be 2:33, somewhere in there.
Very
Bye-bye.
good, Steve.
Yep.
Yep, bye-bye.